My name is Michael W. Dymond, and I want to tell you about a book I wrote called Ducky, Life Letters. But first I should back up a bit. I've written 4 books, and the first book I wrote, which was published in 2004, was the impetus to the writing of this book. What I wanted to do was write a book about 2 young kids that were in post-Second World War, small town Chatham. And they were growing up there without a father. The father was taken from them in that very war. When I was speaking to my mother about that and other items that I wanted to include in the first book I wrote, she abruptly got up from the chair and headed out of the room, and I didn't know what she was doing. A few minutes later, she came back, and she had a hand. She was carrying this stack of white envelopes. She sat down and handed them to me and said, "You should have these." And there was a couple of stacks, as I recall, wrapped in faded blue and pink ribbons. And they were, in fact, well over 200 letters that my father had written to her that she had kept, starting back in 1938 when he was a member of the local militia, right up to the early months of 1945 when he was captain of C Company of the Algonquin Regiment in the war. So I decided, when I read some of those letters, which was a tough sled, and I have not read them all, I decided I needed to do something to honor my father, hence this book, Ducky, Life Letters. In it, verbatim, are 54 of the letters that he wrote, and I wanted them to be in the book. In addition to that, it sort of outlines how Mom and Dad met in a church youth group. AYPA was called, Anglican Young People's Association, and they got to know each other in this youth group. And I think also a mother met my dad's mother because they sang together in the choir. Anyway, they got to know each other fairly well, and eventually started to date and participated in family and social events at Christmas, etc. And on Christmas of 1939, they became engaged. In July of 1940, my dad joined the Canadian Active Forces and went immediately into training with, I guess, attending the war in mind. In September of that year, on Labor Day, they got married and had a brief honeymoon in I guess, Niagara Falls, which is where most people go for honeymoons, at least in those days, with a side trip also to Toronto when they attended the Canadian National Exhibition there. And this is all outlined in the book. On returning from their honeymoon, which I'm sure wasn't very long because he probably had a brief furlough in order to get married, he went back to training, and Mother went home. The home that my sister and I were brought up in. Incidentally, those 2 kids I was talking about is my sister and I. And Dad went off to continue his training, which took him from the West Coast to the East Coast, north into Quebec, where he had officer training, to Niagara Falls, where they guarded the hydroelectric plant, and also on the East Coast on a watch out for German U-boats. Anyway, in 1943, where my dad had risen to the rank of lieutenant in the army. He and 4,000 other young men got on a boat in Windsor, Nova Scotia, and sailed to England, where they were complete their final training before heading to the war's front. They didn't make the war's front until July 1944, when they sailed down the Mersey River from Liverpool across the English Channel to France, where they landed at Juno Beach about a few weeks after D-Day. They camped at the beach, and then they headed in a few days later and traveled through France, traveled to Belgium, traveled through Holland to the German border, pushing Jerry back the whole time. My dad had reached the rank of captain at that point. He was in charge of C Company with the Algonquin Regiment. On April 30th, 1945, my dad was out in an early morning reconnaissance mission with some of his troops when they ran into a German group that was doing exactly the same thing. A firefight broke out. They all dove into ditches or trenches, whatever. And my dad landed in one with another German soldier, and there was a firefight that broke out there, and my dad was killed. He was killed on April 30th, 1945, 1 week before the war ended in Europe, which seems so futile, but then again, war is futile. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about the book. Ducky Life Letters. It was the over 200 love letters that kept them together, and I renamed them as life letters because most of their life together after they got married was lived through these letters, because they had very little time together. Well, there was me and my sister, but she was born on February the 1st, 42, and when Dad left in 43, I wasn't born till November of 43, so we never really got to see each other, which was a sad part of the whole thing. Anyway, Ducky Life Letters. I contributed that to my dad in honor of my dad because I never really knew him at all. So if you get a chance to read the book, it might be enlightening to you. Thanks for your time.
Ducky Life Letters, now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.